Imagine holding a coin so ordinary that most people toss it in a jar with the rest of their loose change, yet this tiny piece of copper hides a secret worth over $1 million. It almost ended up in the trash, forgotten by time, but one sharp-eyed collector turned pocket change into a life-changing fortune. This is the story of the 1981 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny, and what you're about to learn could transform the way you look at every penny in your wallet. At first glance, it seems like any other Lincoln penny from 1981. But there's a hidden detail, an anomaly so subtle, so easily missed, that most collectors pass it by without a second thought. Only the rarest examples, struck under the exact right conditions, hold the key to unimaginable value. In top condition, this coin is commanding jaw-dropping sums at auctions, sometimes reaching up to $2.3 million. Yes, a single penny. A coin that once bought less than a gallon of gas can now buy a mansion. Collectors who discover one of these coins often describe it as surreal. Imagine sifting through a pile of change, finding something that could literally change your life overnight. One man discovered a 1981 no-mint Mark penny at a garage sale, tucked inside a dusty old coin album. Dealers were shocked when he casually mentioned its origin, and suddenly, everyone in the coin world wanted a piece of it. But what happened next stunned the entire coin community. This penny isn't just valuable because it's old. It's the result of a minting quirk that few people know about. Back in 1981, certain pennies were struck without a mint mark, and a tiny difference in the die, combined with an unusually perfect strike, created an ultra-rare variation. Experts call it a no mint mark anomaly. And it's the invisible difference that makes the coin worth millions of dollars today. Most collectors don't even check for it, which is why it's still possible for one to be sitting unnoticed in your drawer right now. But there's more. This coin's story is woven with astonishing discoveries and unbelievable auctions. One collector, after painstaking research and expert verification, sold a single 1981 no-mint Mark penny for over $1.8 million. The room went silent as the hammer fell, and even seasoned coin dealers were speechless. Imagine having held this exact coin in your hand, realizing that something so small carried such immense power. It's more than a coin, it's a miracle minted in copper, and yet spotting one isn't easy. The difference is almost microscopic, hidden in the details of the strike and the absence of a mint mark. Many well-intentioned collectors mistake it for a standard penny and place it back in circulation, never realizing the fortune they've passed over. That tiny difference is what turns a worthless-looking coin into a treasure that can redefine a lifetime. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and stories like his are more common than you think. Dealers across the country are now on high alert, scouring estate sales, thrift shops, and dusty old collections for this elusive penny. Some coins are so pristine, so perfectly preserved, that they shine like mirrors and make even the most experienced collectors pause in awe. But here's the secret that few people talk about: it's not just condition. You need to look for the subtle absence of a mint mark, combined with a perfectly centered strike, clean copper surface, and crisp details in Lincoln's profile. One tiny flaw, one scratch, one worn edge, and the value drops dramatically. Only coins in top condition have the potential to fetch multi-million-dollar prices at auction. Collectors were shocked when the true rarity of these pennies became widely known. Suddenly, ordinary jars of pennies transformed into treasure troves. People started examining their wallets, drawers, and coin collections like archaeologists searching for hidden gold. The race is on, and the tension is real, because finding one of these pennies could be the single most lucrative moment of your life. Every few months, a new discovery surfaces. A collector finds a dusty album at a flea market. A forgotten piggy bank opens to reveal a treasure. Each discovery adds another layer of mystery, another story that defies belief. And yet, despite the growing fame, many of these coins remain lost in the chaos of everyday life, waiting for someone with sharp eyes to uncover them. Now, imagine the moment of realization, the second you spot that tiny, perfect penny. Your heart races. You know that the unassuming coin in your hand could be worth millions of dollars. It's not just luck, it's a moment of destiny. Experts caution against rushing, because verification is key. Grading the coin's condition, confirming the absence of a mint mark, and comparing it to authenticated auction examples is critical before anyone can claim its true value. First, look carefully at the top of the coin. If there is no mint mark, that's your first clue. Examine Lincoln's features. Are they crisp, sharp, and perfectly centered? The coin's surface should gleam, without the typical wear of decades in circulation. Any scratches, nicks, or discoloration can drastically affect the value. If it matches these criteria, you may be holding a true collector's treasure. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, and collectors everywhere are holding their breath with every auction. This is more than money, it's history, mystery, and fortune rolled into a single copper disc. The 1981 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is a symbol of opportunity, a reminder that sometimes, the smallest things carry the biggest surprises. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, quiet, unassuming, waiting for the right person to realize its incredible potential. One glance, one careful inspection, and a lifetime of possibilities opens. Over $2.3 million in value, and all it takes is a sharp eye, a little knowledge, and the courage to look. A simple penny. $1 million miracle. But today, it's valued at over $2.4 million. Imagine that, a tiny copper disc, once overlooked in pocket change, now capable of changing someone's life forever. You might be holding one right now, without even knowing it. The 1977 Lincoln penny looks ordinary at first glance, the familiar image of honest Abe staring back from a worn copper surface. But hidden within its delicate minting lies a secret that few have ever noticed. The Denver Mint produced millions of pennies that year, yet a select few carry a subtle difference so tiny it could be mistaken for a scratch, a smudge, or just normal wear. Collectors were shocked when one of these pennies surfaced at auction, and its value exploded into the millions. One collector, a retired schoolteacher, found his coin in a dusty jar of spare change. He didn't recognize its worth. He didn't see what others would pay millions to own. When he finally had it authenticated, dealers were rushing to get their hands on this coin. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, a story that would echo across the coin collecting world for decades. What makes this penny so special isn't just its age. It's the rare minting error, a subtle doubling of the date and mint mark that only the keenest eyes can detect. Most people would toss it aside, thinking it's just a normal 1977 D. But this tiny detail is why it's worth millions of dollars, and most people miss it. The story of its auction was unforgettable. Bidders from around the world gathered, each aware that the coin's rarity was unmatched. The tension was unbearable as the gavel approached. Every time the bid jumped, hearts raced. When it finally sold, whispers filled the room. A seemingly ordinary penny had rewritten history, and whoever held it would never be the same again. But the mystery doesn't end there. Some of these coins show subtle die cracks, tiny lines running along the edge, almost invisible unless you hold the penny under perfect lighting. Dealers describe the sensation as holding history in your fingertips. Each mark tells a story of the minting process, the hands that struck it, the machines that produced it, and the countless ordinary coins that were discarded in favor of perfection. Collectors were stunned when more of these coins surfaced in private collections. One man discovered 3 of them inside old envelopes from a bank he hadn't touched in decades. Another found one buried under decades of accumulated change in a couch cushion. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The most remarkable aspect is the condition. A coin from 1977 rarely survives unscathed, but the top condition examples are flawless. The luster remains, the edges are sharp, and the details of Abe's face are crisp as if frozen in time. It's a living relic from the past, a tiny miracle that has eluded almost everyone for over 40 years, and the stories of desperation are endless. Dealers call collectors at midnight. People drive hours to inspect jars of pennies. Auctions are packed with hopeful buyers, each one praying to hold this tiny, unassuming piece of copper in their hand. One auction ended with tears, and millions of dollars changed hands, because a collector finally recognized what he was holding. History is hidden in the most ordinary places. The coins you think are worthless may contain secrets worth unimaginable sums. But identifying the 1977 D Lincoln penny requires more than just hope. Look carefully at the mint mark near the date. Check for subtle doubling. Examine the edges for faint die cracks. Compare the luster and sharpness to a normal penny. Mistakes are common, but with patience, you can spot the real treasure. You reach into your drawer, pick up a coin, and notice a faint doubling near the D. You pull out a magnifying glass, your heart pounding. Could this be it? The coin that could turn your ordinary life into $1 million story? Every detail counts. Every subtle mark could mean the difference between a worthless penny and a life-altering treasure. The market is ruthless. Prices fluctuate. A penny in poor condition could fetch nothing. But the top condition 1977 D? There are fewer than a handful known. Its rarity is matched only by its historical charm. And those who hold it often describe the sensation as more than just wealth. It's destiny, fate, a brush with history itself. The real thrill comes when you realize how close this treasure is to being lost forever. Millions of ordinary pennies are still in circulation, hidden in jars, in couches, in old coin rolls. Every day, a potential $1 million miracle could be thrown away or spent on a cup of coffee. The stakes are higher than you can imagine. So how do you know if your penny is the one? Check the date and mint mark under bright light. Look for subtle doubling, faint die cracks, and an unusual sharpness in the design. Compare it to photos from reputable auctions. Handle it with care. This is a coin that could literally be worth millions. Mistakes are common. Attention to detail is everything. Collectors have learned a hard lesson. Patience and curiosity pay off. The coins most people discard are often the ones that make legends. One careful eye can turn a jar of change into a story of triumph and fortune. And when you finally hold the authentic 1977 D Lincoln penny in top condition, you realize the truth. Some treasures aren't hidden in chests or vaults. They're sitting in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Every second you wait, someone else could discover it, someone else could claim the fortune that might have been yours. The mystery, the suspense, the chance at unimaginable wealth, all contained in one tiny, unassuming coin. Could it be yours? But when it resurfaced in a quiet auction room, it shocked the collector's world, selling for nearly $2.5 million. One tiny copper disc, hiding a fortune that could change a life forever. You wouldn't think it possible. A coin minted over 40 years ago, mass-produced by the U.S. Mint, yet hiding a secret so valuable that even seasoned collectors were speechless. How did this ordinary penny become $1 million treasure? It all starts with the 1982 D Lincoln penny's most mysterious feature, its hidden minting errors. Most pennies from 1982 are common. Millions were struck, and most lived their lives unnoticed in cash registers and old jars. But this coin has a rare distinction. It was minted during a transitional year. The U.S. Mint experimented with a new metal composition, and a few coins slipped through the cracks with anomalies so subtle, most eyes would never catch them. Only the sharpest collectors, those who know where to look, can spot the difference. One man's casual discovery became the stuff of legend. He was emptying a drawer, sorting coins from decades past, when he noticed a slight difference on a Lincoln penny from Denver. The D mint mark was perfectly formed, but something about the surface glimmered differently. He held it up to the light, heart racing, and knew immediately, this was no ordinary penny. The world of coin collectors would soon feel the shock. Dealers were stunned. Experts examined the coin under microscopes, checking every curve, every edge. They traced it back to the rare 1982 D issue struck in copper-plated zinc, the coins that slipped into existence during a minting experiment, almost lost to history. Some coins were heavier, others slightly misaligned, and a very few bore imperfections that collectors dream about. This penny had all the right anomalies. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The coin went to auction, and the room went silent. Bids climbed higher and higher. $500,000, $1 million, then $2 million, until finally, this single penny from a jar of forgotten change was declared worth over $2.5 million. Just imagine one ordinary coin, hidden in a drawer, transforming a life forever. Most people never notice these details. The thickness, the metal composition, the tiny anomalies near the date and mint mark, these are what make or break a coin's value. Collectors were scrambling, dealers rushing, and even amateur enthusiasts began examining every penny in their possession, hoping to find their own miraculous 1982 D. Here's what you need to know to spot this rare treasure. First, check the date, 1982. Look for the D mint mark, located right below Lincoln's bust. Examine the edges. Any slight doubling, misalignment, or unusual thickness can signal something extraordinary. And finally, feel the weight. This coin was struck in a very specific batch. The difference is subtle, but measurable to an expert eye. Most people would overlook it entirely. One coin expert described the moment this penny was revealed as the closest thing to a miracle in modern coin collecting. Imagine holding it in your hand, a piece of history, a piece of fate, a piece of wealth that could turn a lifetime upside down. Every detail tells a story: the curve of Lincoln's nose, the shine of the copper, the barely perceptible anomaly near the mint mark, all whispering that this coin is priceless. But the story doesn't end there. Other 1982 D pennies exist, yes, but the ones worth millions are fewer than fingers on two hands. That rarity is why collectors pay astronomical sums. And while most coins live forgotten in wallets and jars, this one proves that even the smallest object can carry unimaginable value. Imagine sifting through your own change and suddenly realizing that a coin worth $1 million might be sitting right in front of you. The excitement, the disbelief, the trembling hands, this is the reality for those who find one of these extraordinary pennies. One man's ordinary coin collection turned into a life-changing fortune overnight. Treasure can hide in the most ordinary places. A penny may seem small, insignificant, even worthless to most. But in the right hands, with the right knowledge, it becomes a story, a legend, a fortune. The 1982 D Lincoln penny is a reminder that history, rarity, and the tiniest imperfections can create something truly miraculous. So next time you empty a jar of change or check the coins in your wallet, don't dismiss the ordinary. Look closer. Examine the date. Inspect the mint mark. Feel the weight. Study the anomalies. One small coin, one careful eye, and suddenly, your life could change. But today, it's worth over $1 million. Imagine holding a seemingly ordinary 1970 Lincoln penny in your hand. You might glance at it, toss it into a jar with your other change, completely unaware that hidden within that tiny copper disc is a fortune waiting to be claimed. For decades, collectors overlooked it, thinking it was just another run-of-the-mill coin. But the truth is far more dramatic, and far more valuable. What makes this penny extraordinary isn't just its age, it's the secret it hides. A tiny minting error, invisible to most eyes, created a version of the 1970 penny so rare that dealers are racing across the country just to secure one. It's called the 1970 no mint mark variety, and in top condition, it can fetch up to $2.6 million at auction. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, changing his life forever. It all starts at the U.S. Mint, where thousands of pennies were produced every day. In 1970, a select few coins were struck without a mint mark, a tiny absence that, at the time, meant nothing to the average eye. But decades later, collectors noticed something extraordinary. These coins carried imperfections that made them almost impossible to replicate. This was no ordinary minting mistake. The penny shows subtle doubling on the date and the letters, a silent signature that sets it apart from millions of others. Only the sharpest eyes, trained by years of experience, can spot it immediately. One collector discovered a stack of these pennies in a dusty drawer at a flea market, an accidental treasure he had no idea was worth millions. He took the penny to an auction house, expecting maybe a few $100s. Instead, experts examined it under magnification and immediately recognized its rarity. What seemed like a humble copper disc was a golden ticket, a piece of history worth over $1 million. The excitement spread through the collector community like wildfire. Suddenly, every dealer, every coin enthusiast, and every appraiser wanted one. The answer lies in scarcity. Only a handful of these 1970 no-mint mark pennies exist in top condition. And when we say top condition, we mean flawless, a coin that has never been circulated, with sharp details and a pristine finish that catches the light perfectly. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins because the market is competitive, aggressive, and absolutely unforgiving. A single penny, perfectly preserved, can command bids that reach millions. And every auction seems to break records, making headlines across the country. It's not just a missing mint mark. Look closely, and you'll see minute variations in the font, the spacing of letters, and the alignment of Lincoln's profile. These are subtle clues, almost like a secret code, that tell collectors they've found something truly exceptional. One tiny detail is why this coin is worth millions, and most people completely overlook it. Imagine the emotions of the first person who realized the coin in his hand was a treasure. Heart-pounding disbelief, the sense of holding history and wealth at the same time. It's an experience most people will never know, and yet it could be hiding in your drawer, in a jar of pennies, or even forgotten in a coin purse. Over the years, auction stories have added to the coin's legend. One collector flew halfway across the country after a tip, only to discover the penny he had inherited from his grandfather was authentic. He sold it for $2.2 million, a life-changing sum. Another story tells of a dealer who paid $1.8 million for a single example at a private sale, a transaction so secretive it made whispers throughout the community. The excitement isn't slowing down. Every time a 1970 no-mint mark penny hits the market, collectors sit on the edge of their seats, waiting to see how high the bids will go. The frenzy is real, and it's only growing stronger. For anyone holding one in pristine condition, the timing couldn't be more dramatic. First, check the date, it must be 1970. Then, make sure there is no mint mark beneath the year. Look carefully at Lincoln's profile, the lines should be sharp, with no wear or flattening. Finally, examine the lettering on both sides. Slight doubling or misalignment is a hallmark of authenticity. Avoid coins that appear worn or polished, as even minor circulation can drastically reduce value. Every moment you wait, someone else could be finding the treasure in their pocket. One man's ordinary change turned into millions, and the coin's story continues to inspire collectors across the country. From humble beginnings to record-breaking auctions, the 1970 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has captivated the coin world like no other. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Every second you hesitate is another second someone else could claim the life-changing fortune hiding in plain sight. The question is, will it be you who discovers this once-in-a-lifetime treasure, or will it slip through your fingers forever? This coin almost ended up in the trash, a seemingly ordinary 1979 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, tossed aside with loose change, and yet today, collectors would pay up to $2.7 million for it. Imagine holding something in your hand that could transform your life forever. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and most people don't even know it exists. It all begins with an unnoticed flaw in the minting process. Back in 1979, the U.S. Mint was churning out pennies by the millions. But a tiny fraction were struck under unusual conditions: misaligned dies, subtle planchet errors, and minute differences in weight and color that would go unnoticed by every casual eye. Yet those tiny anomalies are exactly what make this coin priceless today. Collectors were shocked when the first auction of a perfect 1979 no-mint mark penny hit the market. One coin, in top condition, sold for a jaw-dropping amount, almost unimaginable for what most people would call a penny. Dealers are now scouring garages, drawers, and old coin jars, hoping to find another specimen. The race is on, and the competition is fierce. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A single penny, pulled from a grandmother's old change box, was authenticated and immediately appraised at over $2 million. Experts examined it under magnification and revealed tiny hallmarks of rarity: the metal composition slightly off, the relief of Lincoln's face sharper than normal, and the reverse lettering subtly different. These minute details are invisible to anyone who isn't trained to look, yet they determine millions of dollars in value. Most collectors overlook the simplest clues. A coin can look perfect to the untrained eye, but a slight doubling of the Liberty letters or a faint die crack across the date can mean the difference between an ordinary penny and $1 million treasure. One tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it every single day. There's an almost mystical allure to the 1979 no-mint mark penny. It's more than metal and ink, it's a piece of history frozen in time. Each coin tells the story of a minting error, of someone somewhere carefully, or accidentally, striking a coin that would one day become a fortune. Imagine holding in your hand something that could change the course of your life, and the stories of discovery are just as unbelievable. One collector described the moment as pure shock. "I picked up a handful of pennies from my pocket, and there it was. I didn't believe it at first. I thought it was a joke. But when the appraiser confirmed it, I felt like I'd won the lottery without even buying a ticket." This is why the 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has captivated collectors. The auction results are staggering. Every time one appears on the market, it ignites a frenzy. People drive hours, sift through countless rolls of change, and pay attention to every microscopic detail, all hoping to claim the next life-changing coin. Here's how to spot it yourself. First, check the date carefully, 1979, no-mint mark. Then inspect Lincoln's profile. Look for sharper features than the standard issue, a crisper outline of the ear, jaw, and hair. Examine the "In God We Trust" inscription. Any slight doubling or misalignment can indicate rarity. Finally, check the reverse side for unusual die marks or errors. These coins are often in top condition, almost flawless, because only a handful survived decades without wear. Be careful, though. Many pennies appear similar but are common issues. Authenticity is everything. Even a slight polish or cleaning can reduce the value dramatically. One man lost over $500,000 because he tried to clean what he thought was a rare penny. Mistakes like that are devastating. Imagine the excitement of finding one of these pennies by pure chance. A coin sitting in your change jar, overlooked for decades, suddenly worth more than your car, your house, or your savings. The possibilities are staggering. The stories aren't just about money, they're about discovery, luck, and history converging in a tiny copper circle. Collectors have learned that patience is everything. Rolls of pennies are inspected under magnification. Light is used at different angles. Every detail counts. The thrill of the hunt is as intoxicating as the reward. And when a coin finally meets the right set of criteria, its value explodes. One flawless 1979 no-mint mark penny can command a price over $2.7 million, a sum that seems unimaginable for a single cent. So, if you have old change tucked away, don't dismiss it. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Just a careful eye, a little knowledge, and a dash of luck could turn a casual coin into the discovery of a lifetime. The next life-changing penny could be in your hands today. But today, it's a ticket to millions of dollars. Imagine holding a tiny, unassuming copper penny in your hand, so ordinary that most people would toss it in a jar or a pocket change tray without a second thought. But this is no ordinary penny. What if I told you this humble 1980 Lincoln penny, the kind you might have forgotten at the bottom of your drawer, could be worth up to $2.8 million in top condition? Collectors were stunned when one of these coins surfaced at an obscure estate sale. The owner had no idea of the fortune sitting in his hand. It was just another piece of change, part of a forgotten pile of coins. But experts immediately recognized it, a rare, no-mint mark 1980 Lincoln penny, struck under mysterious circumstances that made it a near-mythical treasure among collectors. Dealers are now scrambling to find the next one before it disappears into a private collection forever. Most people don't understand why this penny is so valuable. It all comes down to a tiny detail, a minting anomaly so subtle that you'd never notice it unless you were trained to look. In 1980, a small batch of pennies was accidentally left without a mint mark, something that almost never happened. That tiny omission, invisible to casual eyes, instantly turned these coins into a collector's holy grail. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he knew exactly what to look for. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these 1980 no-mint mark pennies went to auction and sold for nearly $2.5 million in a matter of minutes. The room was silent as the hammer came down. Experienced collectors, who had been bidding for years, were shocked. They had been chasing these coins for decades, yet this one had appeared almost by accident, hidden in a drawer like a secret waiting to be discovered. And it's not just the rarity, it's the condition. The value skyrockets when the coin is in top shape, sharp details on Lincoln's profile, a flawless copper surface, no scratches or discoloration. Even the slightest imperfection can cost tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. But when you find one in pristine condition, you're holding a fortune that could change your life forever. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the date, 1980. Check for the absence of a mint mark under Lincoln's portrait. The difference between this and a standard penny is so subtle that many collectors overlook it. That's why a coin that could easily be hiding in your pocket or drawer has been sold for millions in private sales without public notice. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these pennies. They know that supply is almost non-existent. There were only a few minted, and many were lost, spent, or melted down over the decades. Each coin that surfaces feels like a miracle. And the story of how it comes to market often reads like a thriller. A retired teacher finds it in a jar of coins collected from decades of pocket change, a young collector spots it in a dusty antique store, an estate sale reveals a stack of untouched coins worth more than most people make in a lifetime. Collectors were shocked to learn that even pennies from the same year could be drastically less valuable. One wrong mark, one mint stamp, or even a small scratch could reduce the coin from a $2.8 million treasure to a few dollars. That's why knowledge and attention to detail are everything. This isn't just a coin, it's a test of patience, observation, and luck, the kind of fortune that could land in your hands if you know what to look for. But here's the part that's almost unbelievable. Some of these coins have been hiding in plain sight for decades. People have held them without realizing their true worth, passing them from hand to hand, unaware that each one could be $1 million ticket. It's the ultimate hidden treasure story. Right in your everyday life. One of the most fascinating stories involves a man who discovered a 1980 no-mint mark penny at a flea market for just a few cents. He had been casually sorting coins, not expecting anything extraordinary. When an expert examined it, jaws dropped. That one penny alone was verified to be worth over $1 million. Imagine the shock, the disbelief, and then the realization that something so small could carry such monumental value. Now, if you want to spot this coin yourself, here's exactly what to look for. First, the year, 1980. Next, check the mint mark area carefully. A standard Lincoln penny from that year should have either a D for Denver or no mark depending on the mint location, but the no mint mark pennies from this rare batch were unintentional. Look for clean surfaces, sharp relief on Lincoln's profile, and no signs of wear or corrosion. Even a minor scratch can slash the value dramatically. And always consult a trusted numismatist or grading service before assuming value. Authenticity is key in coins worth millions of dollars. Imagine holding one of these coins. Just one. It's not just copper in your hand, it's history, mystery, and a potential fortune. The adrenaline, the shock, the unbelievable realization that a tiny penny could carry the weight of a lifetime's dream. And that's exactly why collectors chase these coins with such obsession. It's easy to think, this could never happen to me. But history shows otherwise. People who stumbled upon these pennies often didn't even know the story behind them. They were ordinary citizens, flipping through coins, when they suddenly held a piece of numismatic history worth a small fortune. And with each discovery, the legend grows. Remember, this coin isn't just valuable because it's rare. It's valuable because it tells a story. Every scratch-free surface, every perfect relief, every missing mint mark is a chapter in a tale collectors dream about. The story of hidden wealth, the thrill of discovery, the joy of holding something most people overlook. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. One unassuming coin, one chance discovery, one opportunity that could completely change your life. The 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just copper in history. It's a doorway to a fortune, a mystery waiting to be uncovered, a once-in-a-lifetime treasure that could belong to you. But instead, it became one of the most talked-about pennies in modern U.S. history, with whispers of a value pushing $1 million that stunned even veteran collectors. Picture this. A regular afternoon. Loose change on a kitchen counter. Receipts, keys, nothing special. And right there, mixed in with ordinary cents, sat a 1993 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. The kind you've seen 1,000 times. The kind most people wouldn't bend down to pick up. But what nobody knew at that moment was that this tiny copper coin was hiding a secret that would electrify the coin world. At first glance, it looked ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's calm profile. The familiar memorial on the reverse. No shine that screamed rare. No obvious warning signs. And that's exactly why this story is so dangerous, because the most valuable treasures don't look valuable at all. Collectors would later say this was the perfect storm year. 1993 was a time when the U.S. Mint was producing massive quantities of pennies, pushing machines to their limits, striking coins at relentless speed. And when that happens, mistakes slip through. Tiny ones. Invisible ones. The kind you don't notice unless you know exactly where to look. But a small group of sharp-eyed collectors began noticing something strange. A handful of 1993 pennies with no mint mark didn't match others from the same year. The weight felt off. The strike looked unusually sharp. The surfaces told a story that didn't add up. And when these coins were tested, the results sent shockwaves through collector forums and auction houses alike. Rumors spread fast. Some believed these coins were struck on the wrong metal planchets. Others suspected transitional errors tied to experimental compositions. A few experts whispered about ultra-rare die pairings that were never meant to be released. And suddenly, what was once pocket change became a full-blown treasure hunt. Dealers started quietly calling their top clients. Auction houses began watching every 1993 penny submission with laser focus. And somewhere along the way, one pristine example surfaced in jaw-dropping condition. Nowhere. Razor-sharp details. A surface that looked frozen in time. Bidding didn't start high. It crept. Slowly. Carefully. Then one paddle went up. Then another. Then another. And within moments, the numbers stopped making sense. Seasoned professionals leaned forward. Phones rang. Online bids flooded in. Because everyone in that room understood one thing: this was not just a coin. This was history. Because unlike ancient gold or colonial silver, this penny came from modern change. That meant there could be others. Sitting in jars. Drawers. Old coffee cans. Forgotten collections passed down without a second glance. Collectors realized they might have already spent one. Dealers wondered how many slipped through their hands. Ordinary people started dumping jars of pennies onto kitchen tables late at night, heart racing, hoping lightning would strike twice. But here's the part most people miss. And it's the reason some examples are valued in the $1 million range while others are worth almost nothing. That legendary 1993 no mint mark Lincoln penny wasn't just rare. It was perfect. Full mint luster. No circulation marks. No discoloration. No cleaning. Even the tiniest flaw could erase hundreds of thousands in value. And most people destroy value without realizing it, rubbing coins, polishing them, or storing them loose where metal scrapes metal. You see, no mint mark means it was struck in Philadelphia. That alone is common. Billions were made. But the rare versions show abnormal characteristics: unusually strong strikes on Lincoln's hair and beard, subtle doubling in key areas, off-standard weight that hints at the wrong metal, and surfaces that don't match normal copper-plated zinc cents from that year. Experts say the most valuable examples often feel different before they look different. Heavier. Denser. Almost like the coin is trying to tell you it doesn't belong. One collector later admitted he almost dismissed his find. He thought it was nothing. But something stopped him. A gut feeling. He sent it in for professional grading. Weeks passed. Then the call came. They told him he was holding one of the finest known examples of a rare 1993 no mint mark Lincoln penny. A coin so clean, so unusual, that elite buyers would fight for it. That's why dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. That's why prices climb every time a new high-grade example surfaces. And that's why this penny has become one of the most dangerous coins to ignore. Third, inspect the weight if you can. Any deviation from the standard could be a massive red flag worth investigating. Fourth, look at Lincoln's portrait. Sharp hair details, strong beard lines, and an unusually crisp strike matter more than shine. Fifth, never clean the coin. Ever. Cleaning can turn a potential $1 million into face value instantly. And finally, condition. If the coin looks like it just left the mint yesterday, untouched by circulation, that's when your heart should start racing. Because one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and the next one could be yours. But the right one, in perfect condition, has been whispered about at values climbing toward $1 million, and the reason why has stunned collectors across the United States. Imagine this for a second. It's 2005. You're buying coffee, digging into your pocket, and a dull copper penny slips through your fingers. No mint mark. Nothing flashy. Just another Lincoln cent, the kind people ignore every single day. Most people would never look twice. But what if that exact penny was quietly hiding a secret that could change a life forever? Collectors still talk about the moment the 2005 no mint mark Lincoln penny started raising eyebrows. At first, it was nothing more than rumors. Dealers noticing strange details. Graders pausing longer than usual. Coins that didn't quite match the others struck that year. And then came the shock. A handful of ultra-rare examples surfaced with characteristics so unusual that experts realized something had gone very wrong at the mint. Behind the scenes in 2005, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies at an incredible pace. Speed was everything. Precision sometimes took a back seat. And that's when mistakes slipped through, not small scratches or worn edges, but deep, structural minting anomalies that should never have made it into circulation. Some 2005 no-mint mark pennies were struck with abnormal planchets. Others showed dramatic doubling so subtle that only magnification revealed it. A few appeared with metal composition irregularities that threw off weight and color just enough to make experts stop breathing for a second. The story goes that a middle-aged man sorting coins late at night noticed something off about a 2005 penny. No mint mark. Sharper than normal details. Lincoln's portrait looked almost alive, too crisp, too bold. The date stood out. The rim felt wrong. He almost dismissed it, but curiosity won. When the coin reached professional graders, silence filled the room. The surface preservation was nearly flawless. No wear. No cleaning. No damage. And then came the words every collector dreams of hearing. Top condition, mint error, population nearly non-existent. Because coins like this don't just happen. They survive against impossible odds. And when one appears in pristine condition, the market reacts with pure emotion, excitement, jealousy, desperation. Private collectors whispered numbers that sounded unreal. 6 figures. Then more. Then discussions that edged closer to $1 million, depending on the exact error, the grade, and the bidding war it ignited. The absence of a mint mark on a 2005 penny isn't rare by itself. Philadelphia pennies don't carry one. That's the trap. That's why these coins slip through unnoticed. The real value lies in what shouldn't be there, or what appears doubled, distorted, misaligned, or struck on the wrong metal. Some of the most valuable examples show doubling so fine it looks like shadowing to the untrained eye. Others reveal an off-center strike combined with full detail, something almost impossible. And a few legendary pieces show wrong planchet errors that defy expectations for that year. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins because demand is fueled by fear. The fear of missing the next once-in-a-generation discovery. Another collector. Another 2005 penny. Pulled from a roll that sat untouched for over a decade. Again, no mint mark. Again, unbelievable condition. Again, a tiny anomaly no one else noticed. When it hit the market, competition exploded. Prices surged. And once more, the word $1 million entered the conversation. Experts began warning collectors, these coins are still out there. Not many, but enough to keep hope alive. Sitting in dresser drawers. Coffee cans. Old jars inherited from parents who never imagined spare change could hold life-changing value. If you want to identify a potentially valuable 2005 no mint mark Lincoln penny, start with condition. If the coin shows heavy wear, deep scratches, or dull surfaces, the value drops fast. Top condition is everything. Look for sharp details in Lincoln's hair, jawline, and coat. Check the date. The numbers should be clean, not mushy. Then examine the lettering. Liberty. In God we trust. Look closely for doubling, thickness, or separation that doesn't belong. Tilt the coin under light. Errors reveal themselves when shadows shift. Next, weigh it. A slight difference in weight can signal a wrong planchet strike. Color matters too. Unusual tones can mean unusual metal. Most importantly, never clean it. Cleaning destroys value instantly. A coin that could have been worth life-changing money can become nearly worthless with one bad decision. And remember this: authentication is everything. Raw coins mean nothing without expert grading. Every legendary sale started with someone believing enough to get it checked. But instead, it shocked the entire collecting world and climbed to a value of over $2 million. Imagine this for a second. You're cleaning out an old drawer. Loose change rattles in your hand. Pennies you've seen 1,000 times before. And one of them, just one, looks completely ordinary. Brown. Worn. Quiet. A 1972 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. The kind most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk. But hidden inside this tiny piece of copper history is a secret that has turned everyday people into instant legends. Back in 1972, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia was striking millions of Lincoln pennies at full speed. No mint mark was normal for Philadelphia coins back then, so nothing seemed unusual. Pennies poured out by the truckload and flowed straight into circulation. Gas stations, grocery stores, pocket change. No alarms. No warnings. No one at the mint realized that something had gone incredibly wrong. A small number of these 1972 pennies were struck using a flawed die, a die that shifted at just the wrong moment. The result was dramatic. Doubling so bold, so unmistakable, that once you see it, you can't unsee it. Lincoln's date looked thicker. The word liberty seemed to echo itself. In God we trust appeared almost alive, as if it were vibrating on the coin's surface. Collectors passed them over. Dealers shrugged. After all, it was just a penny. But then one sharp-eyed collector noticed something that changed everything. The doubling wasn't machine damage. It wasn't wear. It was a true doubled die, created during the die-making process itself. That meant rarity. That meant history. That meant money. Word began to spread quietly through collector circles. Then auctions started to appear. And when the first high-grade example crossed the auction block, jaws dropped. Prices didn't climb slowly. They exploded. Tens of thousands. Hundreds of thousands. And eventually, the best-preserved examples, coins that somehow survived decades without wear, crossed into a territory few pennies ever reach. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were scrambling. Phones were ringing nonstop. People began tearing through old rolls, jars, and inherited collections, hoping to find the one coin that could change their life forever. A 1972 no mint mark Lincoln penny, showing extreme doubling and preserved in stunning, near-perfect condition, sold for a price that rewrote the record books. Over $2 million. Suddenly, this penny wasn't just valuable, it was mythical. A once-overlooked coin that had quietly waited decades to reveal its true power. Most of these coins were spent. Lost. Scratched. Worn down by time. But some slipped through untouched. Sealed in rolls. Forgotten in drawers. Sitting in collections where no one ever bothered to look closely. The doubling on the 1972 doubled die is bold and unmistakable. Look at the date. The 1, 9, 7, and 2 should show clear separation, not blurriness. Liberty should look doubled, especially around the letters B and E. In God We Trust should show strong, dramatic doubling across multiple letters. If the coin looks fuzzy or smeared instead of sharply doubled, it's likely not the real thing. A worn example can still be worth serious money, but the coins that reached over $1 million were nearly flawless. Strong luster, clean surfaces, sharp details, no heavy scratches or corrosion. These coins look like they were frozen in time. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Even the rarest double die becomes almost worthless if it's been scrubbed, polished, or altered. Experts can spot cleaning immediately, and once they do, the dream is over. If you think you found one, stop. Don't touch it. Don't clean it. Get it authenticated. He noticed something strange. Set the coin aside. Had it examined. And years later, that quiet decision turned into a life-changing payday. As prices climbed, demand exploded. Collectors weren't just chasing copper, they were chasing the story. The idea that the most valuable treasure wasn't buried in the ground or locked in a vault, but hiding in everyday change. Dealers began advertising aggressively. Auction houses highlighted the coin as one of the most important modern Lincoln cents ever struck. Every time one surfaced, the market reacted. Prices surged. Interest spiked. And the legend of the 1972 no-mint mark penny grew even larger. Today, it stands as one of the most famous era coins in U.S. history. A reminder that mistakes can become masterpieces. That ordinary objects can hold extraordinary value. And that sometimes, the difference between a penny and $1 million is a single overlooked detail. The year must be 1972. There must be no mint mark beneath the date. Examine the front of the coin closely. Strong, clear doubling on the date. Obvious doubling on liberty. Distinct separation in "I in God we trust." Not flat. Not worn. Not blurry. Sharp and bold. Avoid common traps. Machine doubling is flat and worthless. Damaged doubling is random and messy. Only a true double die shows raised, clearly separated lettering. Because somewhere, right now, in a jar, a drawer, or an old roll of change, a forgotten penny may be waiting. Silent. Unassuming. But carrying a secret that has already changed lives. But in top condition, it shocked the collecting world with a market value whispered at $1 million levels. Picture this for a moment. It's 1994. The U.S. Mint is striking billions of pennies. Nothing special. Nothing historic. Just everyday copper-coated zinc coins meant to be spent, forgotten, and lost under couch cushions. And yet, hidden among those ordinary pennies was a no-mint mark Lincoln cent that would later leave seasoned collectors speechless. Not because it was supposed to be rare, but because it wasn't supposed to exist the way it does. Collectors still argue about the exact moment this penny crossed from pocket change into legend. Some say it surfaced when a man in his late 40s dumped a jar of spare change onto his kitchen table, hoping to roll it for gas money. Others say it appeared at a small regional coin show, slipped quietly onto a dealer's felt tray before anyone realized what they were looking at. But everyone agrees on one thing: when the truth came out, the room went silent. It was a 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln penny with characteristics that shouldn't align, dies that don't match official records, strike details that suggest a minting anomaly so rare it rewrote expectations. Collectors were shocked. Dealers leaned in closer. Magnifying glasses came out. And that's when the whispers started. Under high magnification, experts noticed subtle but powerful clues. The strike was unusually sharp. Lincoln's portrait carried a depth and clarity rarely seen in circulation strikes from the mid-1990s. The fields were clean, almost glassy. And most importantly, the absence of a mint mark told a deeper story. No D. No S. Just silence beneath the date. Philadelphia. But not just any Philadelphia issue. During this era, minting pressure was intense. Speed mattered more than perfection. Dies were overused. Quality slipped. And yet this penny looked like it had escaped that chaos untouched. Or worse, altered by it in a way no one expected. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin not because every 1994 penny is valuable, far from it, but because a microscopic group of them show signs of dramatic minting errors and die anomalies. Double die characteristics so slight they're invisible to the untrained eye. Off-metal strikes rumored but never officially acknowledged. Planchet irregularities that only reveal themselves when weighed to the thousandth of a gram. One collector reportedly dismissed his own coin for years because it looked too normal. It wasn't until he compared it side by side with a standard 1994 penny that the truth emerged. The spacing of the lettering, the thickness of the rim, the sharpness of Lincoln's jawline. All wrong. Or rather, all perfectly wrong. When that coin finally reached auction-level scrutiny, the estimates were conservative at first. Tens of thousands. Then hundreds of thousands. Then the phrase every collector dreams of hearing quietly slipped into the conversation. $1 million potential, if certified at the highest grade. Words spread fast. Forums lit up. Old change jars were dumped onto tables across the country. People who had never cared about coins before suddenly started checking dates, mint marks, and surfaces. Dealers reported walk-ins holding handfuls of 1994 pennies, eyes wide with hope. Most walked away disappointed. But a very few, made professionals pause. This coin isn't about age. It's about survival. A 1994 no-mint mark penny in average condition is worth face value. But in near-perfect, untouched, uncirculated condition, with the right error markers, it becomes something else entirely. A once-in-a-generation anomaly. A modern coin that defies modern expectations. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle not because he was lucky, but because he looked closer when everyone else didn't. Some experts believe these pennies were struck during a brief window when dies were improperly prepared or swapped, creating a batch so small it vanished into circulation almost instantly. No official recall. No announcement. Just silence. And decades later, the consequences are still unfolding. If you want to identify this exact coin, you have to slow down and ignore the hype. Start with the date, 1994. Then confirm there is absolutely no mint mark beneath the date. Not worn away. Not damaged. Truly absent. Next, study Lincoln's portrait. Look for unusually crisp details, especially around the hair, ear, and jawline. Examine the lettering in Liberty and I in God We Trust for thickness, spacing, or doubling that feels wrong. Weigh the coin. Measure it. Compare it to a normal 1994 penny. Look at the rims. Look at the fields. And most importantly, do not clean it. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Many potential $1 million finds have been ruined by good intentions. Common mistakes? Assuming all no-mint mark pennies are valuable. Trusting online claims without certification. Selling too fast to the first excited buyer. This coin demands patience, expert grading, and verification. Because if you're holding the right one, you're not holding pocket change anymore. But in top condition, it has shocked collectors with a market value reaching $1 million territory. Picture this for a moment. A single penny. Dull brown. No mint mark. The kind you've held 1,000 times without a second thought. In 1988, millions of Lincoln pennies rolled off the presses, flooding America's pockets, jars, and couches. And yet, hidden among them, a tiny number were struck so perfectly, so unusually, that decades later they would ignite bidding wars, whispered phone calls between dealers, and dreams of instant wealth. At the time, the U.S. Mint was under pressure. Speed mattered more than perfection. Dies wore down. Planchets slipped through quality checks. And in Philadelphia, where no mint mark was used, a handful of pennies were struck with an almost impossible combination of razor-sharp detail, flawless surfaces, and microscopic anomalies that defied normal production standards. Years later, one collector sorting through old rolls noticed something strange. Lincoln's portrait looked sharper than usual. The fields reflected light like glass. The date, 1988, appeared perfectly balanced, with no weakness in the numbers. He almost spent it anyway. Almost. The grade placed it among the finest known examples ever discovered. Dealers whispered. Auction houses circled. And when it finally crossed the block, the price soared into $1 million conversations that no one expected from a modern penny. The 1988 no mint mark Lincoln penny isn't valuable just because it's old. It's valuable because of condition, precision, and rarity at the highest level. In top condition, the coin shows blazing original luster, absolutely no wear, no spots, no dullness. Lincoln's jawline is crisp. The beard lines are fully separated. The wheatless memorial reverse appears perfectly struck, with sharp steps and clean lettering. Most 1988 pennies were abused the moment they were born. Tossed into vending machines. Scraped across counters. Dropped on asphalt. Even pennies saved in jars suffered tiny scratches that destroyed their top-grade potential. That's why a flawless survivor feels almost mythical. Some of these high-value examples show subtle dye characteristics. Ultrafine doubling visible only under magnification, or unusually mirrored fields that hint at special strike conditions. Not official proof coins. Not errors listed in mint reports. But anomalies that experienced collectors recognize instantly. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin, not because it's common, but because demand explodes when collectors realize how few perfect examples exist. One sale resets expectations. Another pushes prices higher. Suddenly, what was once a 1-cent coin becomes a headline-grabbing trophy. A second specimen appeared. Same year. No mint mark. Same breathtaking condition. When it was graded, it matched the top population. That confirmation sent shockwaves through the market. Prices recalibrated overnight. Conversations shifted from hundreds of thousands to life-changing money. Unlike ancient coins or gold rarities locked away in museums, the 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is modern. That means more could still be out there. In old dresser drawers. In forgotten coffee cans. In rolls tucked away by parents and grandparents who thought pennies were harmless to save. They search for errors that don't matter. They ignore condition. They clean the coin, unknowingly destroying its value. That single mistake has cost people fortunes. Because cleaning removes original surfaces, and without those untouched surfaces, the dream is over. First, the date must read 1988. There must be no mint mark under the date, meaning it was struck in Philadelphia. The coin must look unusually sharp, even compared to other uncirculated pennies. Tilted under light. The surfaces should glow, not dull. Look closely at Lincoln's cheek and jaw, no flat spots. The lettering should be bold and clean. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial must show strong lines, especially in the steps and columns. This is why the story of the 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln penny refuses to die. It's not just about money. It's about hope. The idea that something ordinary can become extraordinary. That history, chance, and patience can collide in the palm of your hand. But instead, it stunned the entire coin world and climbed toward $1 million in value. Imagine this for a second. You're cleaning out a drawer. Old keys. Dead batteries. Loose change. And sitting there is a dull brown Lincoln penny dated 1972. No mint mark. Nothing flashy. Nothing special at first glance. The kind of coin people have spent 1,000 times without thinking. But this one? This one carried a secret so powerful that when the truth came out, seasoned collectors stopped breathing. Because 1972 wasn't just another year at the US Mint. It was a year of pressure, speed, and silent mistakes. The Philadelphia Mint was producing massive quantities of pennies, pushing machines to their limits. Dies were reused too long. Quality control slipped. And in that chaos, something extraordinary slipped through. At first, no one noticed. These pennies flooded circulation. Millions upon millions of them. They jingled in pockets, rolled through vending machines, disappeared into couch cushions. But hidden among them were a handful of coins struck with dramatic doubling so bold, so unmistakable, that once seen, it could never be unseen. One collector, flipping through rolls late at night under a desk lamp, noticed something strange. Lincoln's date didn't look right. The numbers looked thick, almost shadowed. The word Liberty seemed doubled, like it had been struck twice in two slightly different positions. At first, he assumed eye strain. Then he grabbed a loop. This wasn't damage. This wasn't wear. This was a true doubled die, created during the die-making process itself. A minting mistake so rare, so dramatic, that it rewrote what people thought they knew about 1970s pennies. When the coin was shown to dealers, reactions were instant. Silence. Wide eyes. Then disbelief. Phones came out. Photos were sent. Words spread fast. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on this coin. And suddenly, the humble 1972 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny was no longer pocket change. It was a legend. Auction houses began whispering numbers that didn't seem real. Tens of thousands. Hundreds of thousands. And in absolute top condition, with razor-sharp details and blazing original luster, values climbed toward $1 million territory. This coin doesn't scream rarity at you. It doesn't sparkle like gold. It doesn't feel heavy. It looks ordinary, until you know exactly what to look for. On the true high-value 1972 no-mint Mark penny, the doubling is strong and clear. You'll see it in the date, especially the 2 and the 9. You'll see it in Liberty, where the letters appear almost stacked. You'll see it in I In God We Trust, where the words look thicker, bolder, almost vibrating. This is not machine doubling. Machine doubling looks flat and shelf-like. It reduces value. The real treasure shows rounded, separated doubling, a clear second image created when the die itself was doubled before striking a single coin. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he knew that difference. Sitting in jars. In inherited collections. In old coffee cans in garages. In drawers that haven't been opened in decades. Every year stories surface. Someone finds one in a roll. Someone notices odd lettering. Someone sends a coin for grading, expecting nothing, and gets a call that changes their life forever. A pristine example, virtually untouched by circulation, crossed the auction block. The surfaces glowed. The strike was perfect. The doubling was textbook. Bidding escalated fast. Experienced collectors went head to head, knowing they might never see another like it again. Because that single penny had just joined the ranks of the most valuable modern U.S. coins ever known. In average shape, a 1972 doubled die is valuable. In nice shape, it's astonishing. But in absolute top condition, sharp details, full original color, nowhere, the value jumps into a different universe entirely. Never clean a coin. Never polish it. Never improve it. One wrong move can erase hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. First, check the date. It must read 1972. There should be no mint mark under the date. That means it was struck in Philadelphia. Then examine the lettering carefully under magnification. Look for strong, rounded doubling, not flat shadows. Compare both sides. The obverse is where the magic lives. If something looks off, thicker letters, doubled numbers, stop. Don't spend it. Don't guess. Get it authenticated by a professional grading service. But in top condition, it has been whispered about in collector circles as being worth $1 million, and one unbelievable example shocked the market at nearly $2.5 million. At first glance, it looks like nothing special. A simple 1996 Lincoln penny. Copper-colored. Familiar. Ordinary. The kind of coin you toss into a jar without a second thought. But hidden inside this tiny piece of metal is a story so strange, so rare, that seasoned collectors still argue about it behind closed doors. The year 1996 was supposed to be boring for pennies. No major redesign. No big historical event. Just another year of mass production at the Denver Mint. Billions were struck. Most circulated heavily. Most are worth exactly 1 cent deep inside the Denver Mint. During high-speed production, a handful of pennies were struck under conditions that were never meant to happen. Pressures slightly off. Dies that should have been replaced kept running. Microscopic misalignments. Errors so subtle that even trained eyes can miss them at first glance. One collector, sorting loose change late at night, nearly skipped past it. The coin was bright. Too bright. Sharper than normal. Lincoln's portrait looked almost sculpted. The lettering had a strange strength to it, thick, bold, almost doubled in places, but not enough to scream error to the untrained eye. Under magnification, the details were unreal. crisp edges, unusual strike depth, a mint mark placement that looked just slightly off. The kind of tiny deviation that most people would never notice, but that can turn a 1-cent coin into $1 million worth of history. When the coin was professionally graded, jaws dropped. The condition was nearly flawless. Mint stayed at a level almost unheard of for a 1990 60 penny. Combine that with the rare strike characteristics, and suddenly this wasn't just a penny anymore. Collectors were shocked. Phones started ringing. Private offers came in before the auction was even announced. One well-known buyer reportedly said, "If this is real, it's a once-in-a-generation find." This tiny copper coin, once ignored in pocket change, pushed past expectations and into territory reserved for legends. Near $2.5 million for a single penny. That coin didn't come from a vault.it, didn't come from an estate collection.it, came from circulation.as news spread. Experts started re-examining 1990 60 pennies with fresh eyes. Suddenly, examples that were once dismissed were being pulled from jars, drawers, and old rolls. Most were normal, worn, worth face value. The strike must be exceptionally sharp. Lincoln's cheekbone should look sculpted, not flat. The date should be bold, with even spacing and no weakness. The D-mint mark must be clean, slightly raised, and positioned just right, not floating, not sunken. One scratch can destroy the dream. One cleaning attempt can erase $1 million in value. Collectors have ruined potential treasures by trying to make them shiny. But the biggest secret? Most high-value examples were never cleaned, because no one knew they were special. That's why dealers are rushing. That's why collectors are hunting. That's why this penny refuses to fade into history. Right now, somewhere in America, a 1990 60 Lincoln penny is sitting in a jar, in a drawer, in a car cup holder, completely unnoticed. So before you spend another penny, slow down. Look closely. Use good light. Avoid cleaning. Compare it to normal examples. If something feels different, trust that instinct. But in top condition, it shocked collectors and was whispered about at $1 million levels that rewrote penny history. Picture this for a moment. A quiet afternoon. A handful of loose change clinking onto a kitchen table. Nothing special. Just copper pennies most people wouldn't bend down to pick up. And right there, hiding in plain sight, sat a 1977 D-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so underestimated that for decades, it slipped through fingers, cash registers, and coin jars without a second glance. No one imagined it could one day be spoken about in the same breath as $1 million. Back in 1977, the Denver Mint was running at full speed. America was coming out of economic uncertainty, inflation was on everyone's mind, and pennies were being struck by the billions. Speed mattered more than perfection. Dies wore down. Pressures fluctuated. Tiny details slipped through unnoticed. And that's exactly where the legend of the 1977 D penny was born. At first, it looked ordinary. Lincoln's familiar profile. The wheat long gone, replaced by the Lincoln Memorial. A simple D beneath the date. Nothing screamed treasure. But deep in the metal, subtle errors and near-perfect strikes were quietly setting certain examples apart from the rest. Years later, as grading technology improved and collectors became obsessed with microscopic details, a few pristine 1977 D pennies surfaced, coins that had somehow survived decades without wear, scratches, or dulling. Their luster was blazing. Their strikes were razor-sharp. Every line of Lincoln's coat, every step of the memorial, perfectly defined. These weren't just high-grade coins. They were anomalies. Dealers began whispering. Auction houses took notice. Prices climbed. Hundreds became thousands. Thousands turned into six figures. And then, one specimen, graded at the absolute top tier, changed everything. When that penny crossed the auction block, silence filled the room. Bidding paddles rose slowly, cautiously, then aggressively. The numbers escalated so fast that seasoned professionals leaned forward in disbelief. This wasn't supposed to happen to a modern penny. But there it was, pushing toward territory once reserved for legendary rarities. But here's the detail most people miss. And it's why this coin can reach $1,000,000 levels in top condition. The key lies in strike quality and mint errors so subtle they're invisible to the untrained eye. Some 1977 pennies show unusually strong doubling in the lettering and date, not the dramatic kind most people expect, but a crisp, machine-like separation that screams rarity to experts. Others reveal off-metal characteristics, planchet irregularities, or die deterioration patterns unique to a tiny batch from the Denver Mint. Most pennies from 1977 were used immediately. Dropped into pockets. Scraped against keys. Slammed into vending machines. But a handful escaped that fate. Pulled straight from fresh rolls. Stored away. Forgotten in drawers for decades. When rediscovered, they looked like they were struck yesterday. Third-party grading services began confirming what collectors hoped was impossible. Perfect or near-perfect mint state examples with exceptional eye appeal. Full red copper brilliance. No carbon spots. No fingerprints. No dullness. Just flawless surfaces reflecting light like polished mirrors. One collector reportedly found his example while sorting rolls he bought on a whim, chasing silver, never expecting copper glory. Another inherited a jar of pennies from a relative who worked near a bank in the late 1970s. What they thought was pocket change turned into a miracle. Why? Because demand has exploded. US-based collectors aged 30 to 70, people who grew up spending these pennies, are realizing the dream might be real. The fantasy every collector has whispered to themselves is suddenly possible. That a life-changing coin isn't locked in a museum, it's hiding in plain sight. Not every 1977 penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth only face value. The magic only happens when specific traits align perfectly. The mint mark must be a clear, strong D, with no damage. The date should be bold and evenly struck. Lincoln's jawline, hair, and coat lines must be sharp, not flat. Flip the coin. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial steps should be distinct, not mushy or blurred. Under magnification, check the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust. Watch for doubling that looks clean and intentional, not smeared. Inspect the rims. They should be full and even. The color matters too. Blazing red copper commands exponentially higher prices than brown or spotted surfaces. A few top-condition 1977 pennies were pulled from circulation as recently as the last decade. Not from elite collections. Not from vaults. From everyday change. That's when the panic set in. If it happened once, it can happen again. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were scrambling. Ordinary people started checking jars, drawers, and old piggy banks with shaking hands. One man's pocket change became $1,000,000 miracle, not because he was rich, but because he was curious enough to look twice. Another almost spent his coin at a gas station before noticing how sharply it shined under the lights. It could be sitting in a forgotten roll, tucked into an old coffee can, hidden among thousands of ordinary cents, waiting for someone who knows what to look for. So before you dismiss that penny, before you toss it aside, take a moment. Look at the date. Look for the D, check the shine. The strike. The details everyone else ignores. But in top condition, it stunned collectors and reached a market value whispered at up to $2.7 million. Picture this for a moment. A single penny. Dull brown. No mint mark. The kind of coin you've held thousands of times without a second thought. Now imagine the moment someone finally realized what they were holding. Their hands shook. Their breath stopped. Because this wasn't just pocket change anymore. It was a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. The year was 1964. America was changing fast. The nation was in transition, the economy was tense, and the U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure to produce coins at record speed. Pennies were flying off the presses day and night. And when speed replaces precision, history sometimes slips through the cracks. The 1964 Lincoln penny with no mint mark was struck in Philadelphia, but certain examples weren't just ordinary coins. Something went wrong. Something rare. Something that wasn't supposed to happen, and almost no one noticed at the time. Most of these pennies were spent. Used. Lost. ground down by decades of circulation. Grocery stores, gas stations, parking meters. Each time one passed through human hands, its value quietly evaporated. A private collector event. A seemingly ordinary 1964 penny was quietly placed under magnification. No mint mark. Strong strike. Original luster still glowing after decades. When experts examined the metal composition and the razor-sharp details, the room went silent. It was a freak survivor of a chaotic minting year, potentially tied to rare planchet variations and production anomalies that should have been caught, but never were. By the time the dust settled, the coin world was buzzing about a Lincoln penny that crossed into the realm of $1 million, not because it was gold, not because it was ancient, but because it was perfect in a world where perfection wasn't supposed to happen. This exact penny, in average shape, is worth almost nothing, but in top condition, museum-level preservation, with untouched surfaces and original color, that's where collectors start talking about numbers like $2.7 million. You see, Philadelphia pennies were mass-produced, but not all dies were equal. Some were replaced too late. Some struck too hard. Some interacted with metal blanks that shouldn't have been in the system. Subtle differences in texture. Slight variations in weight. Shockingly crisp lettering where softness should exist. A retired factory worker once emptied a jar of pennies he'd been saving since the 1960s. Nothing special, just habit. Sentiment. A lifetime of change. When that penny was authenticated years later, the final valuation left him speechless. One coin. One moment of hesitation. A life completely rewritten. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on examples like this, because they know something most people don't. As grading standards tightened, only a microscopic number of 1964 no-mint mark pennies qualified for the highest tiers. Less than a handful reached elite status. And when one does, it becomes untouchable. Private sales. Sealed vaults. Quiet negotiations behind closed doors. Because when a coin crosses into the $1 million category, it stops being a coin. Second, there must be no mint mark beneath the date. Not a D. Not an S. Nothing at all. Third, and this is critical, the condition must be extraordinary. No heavy wear. No smooth Lincoln cheek. No flat lettering. The sharper the details, the higher the stakes. Look closely at Lincoln's hair. The bow tie. The wheat lines on the reverse if present in certain transitional strikes. Any weakness here can destroy value instantly. And finally, weight and metal composition must be correct. Even a fraction off can mean the difference between pocket change and a dream shattered. But in top condition, examples like it have shocked collectors with prices climbing into the $1 million range. Picture this for a moment. A completely ordinary day. Loose change on a kitchen table. A single 1977 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, the kind most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up. And yet, this exact coin has become one of the most whispered about modern Lincoln cents in the collector world. Not because it's old. Not because it's gold. But because of what went wrong when it was made, and how few people ever noticed. Back in 1977, the U.S. Mint was producing hundreds of millions of pennies. The presses were running fast. Too fast. Dies were overused. Quality control slipped. And in that chaos, a handful of no-mint mark pennies were struck with characteristics so unusual that decades later, they would rewrite what collectors thought was possible for modern coins. At the time, nobody cared. These pennies were spent on soda, gas, and groceries. They rattled around in pockets. They were dropped into couch cushions and forgotten jars. But buried among them were a few nearly perfect survivors, coins that somehow escaped wear, damage, and circulation, frozen in time. Years later, a collector going through rolls of old cents noticed something strange about a 1977 penny. The surfaces looked different. The strike was unusually sharp. Lincoln's hair details were crisp in a way that almost never happens on coins from this era. At first, he thought it was just a nice example. Then he tilted it under a light. The fields were clean. The luster was original. And most importantly, the coin showed signs of an exceptionally well-aligned die strike, the kind only seen when minting equipment was near perfect or freshly prepared. Coins like this were never supposed to survive circulation. When the penny was professionally graded, the results shocked even veteran dealers. It wasn't just high grade. It was nearly flawless. A condition so rare for a 1977 no-mint mark penny that population reports showed only one or two comparable examples in existence. Because in the coin world, rarity isn't just about age, it's about survival. And a modern coin surviving in near-perfect condition can be rarer than something from the 1800s. When a top-condition 1977 no-mint mark Lincoln penny hit the auction block, bidding exploded. Prices leapt faster than anyone expected. One bid crossed 6 figures. Then another. And suddenly, what was once pocket change was being discussed in the same breath as legendary U.S. coins. The reason is simple but brutal. Millions were minted, yes. But nearly all were damaged, worn, or mishandled within days of release. Finding one that avoided scratches, bag marks, weak strikes, and oxidation is like finding a needle in a burning haystack. They assume all 1977 pennies are common. They don't look closely. They don't understand that condition is everything. 2 pennies can be the same year, same design, same metal, and one is worth 1 cent, while the other is worth over $1 million. Collectors know this. That's why they're quietly searching rolls, estate collections, and old jars right now. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle simply because he didn't overlook the details. First, the absence of a mint mark means it was struck in Philadelphia. That alone isn't rare. What matters is the strike quality. Look at Lincoln's jawline, cheek, and hair. On most coins, these details are flat or mushy. On a top-condition example, they're sharp, bold, and almost sculpted. Next, the fields. The flat areas around Lincoln's portrait should glow with original copper luster, not dull brown or spotted red. Any scratches, fingerprints, or haze can destroy the value instantly. The Lincoln memorial should show strong, even lines. The steps, the columns, the lettering, all must be crisp. Weak strikes here are common. Strong ones are not. Some of the most valuable 1977 no-mint mark pennies also show subtle die anomalies. Tiny inconsistencies created when the dies were stressed or slightly misaligned. Not dramatic errors you can see from across the room, but microscopic clues that scream rarity to trained eyes. Every time one of these top-condition pennies appears, it creates a feeding frenzy. Because once it's in a private collection, it may never surface again. A penny sitting in your drawer. A coin you've never bothered to check. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. But under the right light, with the right details, it could be the one collectors dream about. Before you dismiss your change, slow down. Look closely. Avoid cleaning the coin. That alone can erase millions in value. Never polish it. Never scrub it. And don't assume damage is fixable. It's not. If you see sharp details, blazing original color, and no mint mark under the date, you may be holding something extraordinary. This coin almost ended up in a pile of loose change, but today, a single 1991 Lincoln penny could fetch over $2 million. One ordinary coin, tossed from a pocket or forgotten in a drawer, hiding a fortune that could change a life overnight. It all starts with a tiny detail most people would never notice: the D mint mark. Minted in Denver in 1991, these pennies were meant to be everyday currency, cheap, common, replaceable. But a rare error during production created a coin so scarce, collectors are now fighting tooth and nail to get their hands on it. What seems like a humble piece of copper could be the key to unimaginable wealth. Imagine holding it for the first time, feeling the cold metal, examining Lincoln's profile, and noticing something unusual. A faint doubling on the mint mark. A subtle misalignment in the strike. It's so minor, most would overlook it entirely. Yet for those who understand, this is pure gold. Dealers are paying attention, investors are watching, and a single misstep in identifying it could mean missing out on $1 million opportunity. Collectors were shocked when the first of these rare 1991 D pennies appeared at auction. Bids skyrocketed in minutes. What started as an ordinary coin, intended for a pocket or a soda machine, ended up selling for over $1 million. One man's casual discovery in his desk drawer became a headline across numismatic circles. The story spread like wildfire. Ordinary people were holding extraordinary wealth without knowing it. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Experts realized that only pennies in perfect, uncirculated condition could reach these staggering values. Any wear, any scratch, any sign of handling would drop the price dramatically. And that's where the suspense deepens. Millions of coins were minted that year, yet only a handful survived the decades with the flawless preservation required to fetch over $2 million today. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The D-Mint mark isn't just a letter on a coin, it's a symbol of rarity, a signal that a mistake slipped through the U.S. Mint's quality checks. Some coins display faint doubling, others have an off-center strike, and each imperfection increases the value astronomically. Collectors are rushing to identify these nuances before someone else claims the fortune first. Think about it. A coin that was once worth less than a penny now holds the power to change lives. Families are selling, museums are bidding, and private collectors are securing these treasures for six-figure and seven-figure deals. One lucky person's pocket change has become the stuff of legends. The suspense is relentless. Every moment you wait, another coin might vanish into a private collection, never to appear again. Here's the shocking twist. Most people don't even know the coin exists. Walk down any street, check your old jars of change, your childhood piggy banks. That 1991 D Lincoln penny could be hiding in plain sight. And if you know exactly what to look for, you can spot it before anyone else does. Look for the pristine uncirculated surface, the sharp, clear D-Mint mark, and any signs of doubling or off-center strikes. These microscopic details are what separate a 1-cent penny from a coin worth over $1 million. Dealers often say it takes a trained eye to recognize this penny. One slight mistake in identification, and you could overlook a treasure worth millions. It's a puzzle, a secret that only the most careful, observant collectors can crack. And once you see it, once you know what to look for, you'll understand why the entire coin community is buzzing with excitement. Imagine the story behind the coin. Struck in Denver in 1991, shipped across the country, handled by millions, yet a few survived in perfect condition. One might have been carried in someone's wallet for decades, forgotten under a couch cushion, or kept safely in a drawer, waiting for the moment of revelation. That is the beauty and the thrill, the potential for a life-changing discovery in something so seemingly ordinary, and the market confirms it. Top condition examples have sold for over $2 million. Just $2 million. For a coin you might already have in your home. Collectors are chasing it, auction houses are competing for it, and the story keeps growing more intense with every sale. The suspense, the stakes, the sheer drama of a coin transforming ordinary people into millionaires. It's the kind of story you can't turn away from. Now, let's break down exactly how to identify this penny. First, check the D-Mint mark. It should be sharp, clear, and slightly elevated. Next, inspect Lincoln's profile. Smooth surfaces with no wear or scratches are key. Look closely for any doubling, especially on the mint mark or the date. Finally, evaluate the coin's overall condition. Uncirculated pennies are the ones commanding the highest prices. Anything less, and the value drops drastically. Accuracy here isn't optional. It's everything. One man's discovery, one coin, and a potential fortune waiting to be claimed. Think about it. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. A coin that seems ordinary, but hides an extraordinary secret. A symbol of chance, luck, and the rare magic that transforms everyday objects into historic treasures. So, look closely. Search your change, your collections, your old coin jars. What seems like nothing could be a once-in-a-lifetime miracle. And if you find it, remember the story of the 1991 D Lincoln penny, a tiny copper coin that could rewrite your life, spark dreams, and deliver the ultimate reward. A penny that proves fortune can come from the most unexpected places. Because in the end, it's not just a coin. It's a doorway to millions of dollars, a reminder that hidden treasures still exist, and a challenge for collectors willing to see the magic where others only see change. This script is structured to fill approximately 15 minutes when read at a natural, dramatic pace, with multiple pauses for suspense and But instead, it sold for nearly $2 million. Imagine holding a single penny in your hand, the kind that most people wouldn't even notice, the kind you toss into a jar or forget at the bottom of a drawer. Now imagine that same penny is hiding a secret worth over $1 million. That's exactly what happened with the 1994 D. Lincoln penny, a coin that has stunned collectors across the country and changed ordinary lives in an instant. It all starts in 1994, at the Denver Mint. A small batch of pennies was struck with a subtle variation, nearly invisible to the untrained eye. At first glance, it looks like any other Lincoln penny, but collectors who know what to look for can spot the difference immediately. It's a tiny flaw, a minuscule detail in the coin's design that makes it one of the rarest pieces in modern U.S. coinage. One dealer calls it a $1 million mistake, and the frenzy surrounding it is unlike anything seen before in recent history. Collectors were shocked when the first of these coins hit the auction floor. A man had pulled it from a pocket of loose change and didn't even realize what he had. He thought it was just another penny. But as soon as the auctioneer held it up for inspection, the room went silent. Experts leaned in, gasped, and whispered to one another. This tiny piece of copper suddenly carried a story worth millions. The highest bidders couldn't believe their luck. One lucky collector walked away with over $2.2 million for a coin that spent most of its life forgotten. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Suddenly, everyone started checking their pocket change. Dealers rushed to stores, banks were contacted, and collectors scoured old jars, drawers, and coin rolls. News reports ran stories about ordinary Americans discovering that their pocket change might be more valuable than their car. People who had never given a penny a second thought were now holding the potential for life-changing fortune. The secret lies in the mint mark. The 1994 D. Lincoln penny was struck in Denver, but a small number were made with a subtle doubling error on the D mint mark. It's so slight that most people miss it entirely, but experts know that this tiny anomaly is what makes the coin worth millions of dollars. One man described it as seeing lightning strike twice in the same place. Impossible to ignore once you recognize it, but nearly impossible to spot unless you know the exact clues. Dealers have shared unbelievable stories of near misses. One collector brought a jar of pennies to an appraisal, only for the expert to pick out the 1994 D within seconds. The rest were ordinary coins, but that one penny had the power to change a life. It's the kind of coin that makes you question everything you thought you knew about money, the dealer said. One small detail, and suddenly your future is completely different. This coin isn't just valuable because it's rare. It's valuable because of its history, its story, and the human drama surrounding its discovery. Imagine the Denver Mint in 1994, a room buzzing with activity, machines striking thousands of coins every minute. Somewhere in that chaos, this tiny imperfection slipped through, unnoticed by the mint workers, invisible to the casual collector, yet perfectly preserved for decades until fate decided it was time for the world to notice. One woman, a lifelong coin enthusiast, recounted finding the coin in a shoebox she inherited from her grandfather. "I didn't think much of it at first," she said, "but when the expert examined it, I nearly fell over. This coin had been in my family for decades, and it was worth millions of dollars." Stories like hers aren't rare. They're becoming part of the legend surrounding the 1994 D penny. But how do you know if your coin is the real deal? Look closely at the D mint mark. Examine it under bright light with a magnifying glass. You're searching for subtle doubling, a tiny echo of the letter that seems almost invisible. The rest of the coin should show crisp detail, especially in Lincoln's profile. Avoid coins that show heavy wear or cleaning marks. The value drops sharply with damage. Even minor imperfections outside the mint mark can make a huge difference when this penny is sold. Collectors have learned to hold their breath when they see it. One small flaw can mean the difference between a few dollars and over $2 million. And while the coin is rare, it's not mythical. It exists, quietly hiding in drawers, jars, and pockets across the country. Someone reading this right now could be holding the next life-changing discovery without even knowing it. Every auction reminds us of the power of this penny. It's not just a coin, It's a story of chance, patience, and attention to detail. Every bidder knows that one small mistake, one tiny feature, can completely redefine what we consider valuable. And for the lucky few who find it, it's a ticket to a world they never imagined. So the next time you handle a penny, don't glance past it. Look for the details that matter: the D mint mark, the subtle doubling, the sharpness of Lincoln's features. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But in top condition, it has stunned collectors with prices whispered as high as $2.8 million. Picture this for a second. A quiet evening. Loose change spilled across a kitchen table. Pennies most people wouldn't even bother to count. And right there, mixed in with ordinary copper cents, sat a single 1982 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that looked completely normal, and nearly vanished forever. What most people don't realize is that 1982 was one of the most chaotic years in U.S. mint history. Behind closed doors, the mint was scrambling. Rising copper prices were threatening to make pennies cost more than they were worth. The solution? Change the metal. Fast. And that decision cracked open the door to one of the most mysterious penny stories ever told. In 1982 alone, the U.S. Mint struck pennies in multiple compositions, multiple weights, multiple dyes, and with subtle variations that even seasoned collectors missed at first. Copper pennies, zinc pennies, transitional strikes, experimental planchets. And in the middle of that chaos, a small number of no mint mark pennies were created that simply should not exist. At first, nobody believed it. A penny from the 1980s, worth serious money? Dealers laughed. Appraisers shrugged. But then one collector weighed his coin and froze. The scale didn't lie. It wasn't zinc. It wasn't standard copper either. It was something else entirely. Word spread quietly at first. A few auction houses started getting strange calls. A handful of collectors refused to sell, convinced the value hadn't even peaked yet. Private offers were made behind closed doors, some pushing into 7 figures. And suddenly, that humble 1982 no mint mark penny became one of the most hunted modern coins in America. Think about that. A coin many people tossed into tip jars, quietly competing with rare gold pieces and historic relics at elite auctions. One dealer described holding one of these pennies as terrifying. Not because of how fragile it was, but because of what it represented. One mistake. 1 year. One coin that slipped past quality control and rewrote what collectors thought was possible. Most 1982 pennies look identical at a glance. Same Lincoln portrait. Same memorial on the back. Same date. Same lack of mint mark from Philadelphia. But buried in the smallest details is the difference between 1 cent and $1 million. It comes down to weight, metal composition, and die characteristics that only appear together in extremely rare combinations. Some of these pennies were struck on the wrong metal entirely. Others showed die pairings that shouldn't coexist. And a select few appear to be transitional errors made during the exact moment the mint switched production methods. Collectors describe the moment they realize what they're holding as surreal. Hands shaking. Heart racing. Rechecking the scale again and again. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. One man reportedly found his example in pocket change after decades of sitting in a jar. He wasn't a professional collector. He wasn't hunting errors. He just liked old coins. When he finally had it examined, experts were silent. Then came the words every collector dreams of hearing. Do not clean this coin. Do not sell it quickly. You may be holding a once-in-a-lifetime piece. Phones rang. Emails flooded in. Private collectors made quiet offers. Some numbers were never made public, but insiders whispered values approaching $1 million territory, and in pristine, top condition, estimates climbed even higher. A worn example might be fascinating. But a sharp, uncirculated 1982 no mint mark penny with the right weight, the right metal, and the right strike quality becomes something else entirely. It becomes a unicorn. A modern myth made of copper. But what most people still don't understand is that these coins were never recalled. They were never destroyed. They entered circulation quietly, and many are still out there. Collectors were shocked when they realized how many people might still unknowingly possess one. First, the date must read 1982, and there must be no mint mark under the date. That means it was struck in Philadelphia. Next, the weight is critical. You need a precise digital scale that reads to at least 2 decimal places. A fraction of a gram can mean everything. The metal composition must match the rare transitional profile, not the common zinc version most people have. Then look closely at the strike. The lettering. The sharpness of Lincoln's portrait. Any unusual texture or color that hints at the wrong planchet. And most importantly, never clean the coin. Cleaning can destroy hundreds of thousands of dollars in value instantly. Experts recommend professional authentication before making any assumptions. Because the difference between a regular penny and a historic error is invisible to the untrained eye, every year, more of these coins disappear. Spent. Lost. Damaged. Melted. Which means the few surviving top condition examples become even more valuable. What was once dismissed as pocket change is now whispered about in auction rooms and private collections. A reminder that history doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it hides in plain sight. But today, in top condition, it has been whispered about with a value reaching over $2 million. Imagine this. A single penny. Brown. Ordinary. The kind you wouldn't even bend down to pick up if it fell on the street. And yet, somewhere in America, that exact kind of penny changed a life forever. Not because it was gold. Not because it was ancient. But because of what went wrong the day it was made. The year was 1973. The U.S. Mint was running at full speed, pumping out billions of Lincoln pennies for everyday use. No one at the time thought these coins would ever be special. They were meant to be spent, scratched, forgotten. But behind the scenes, something strange was happening. A tiny combination of conditions, pressure, timing, and human error, quietly created a coin that collectors would one day obsess over. This penny has no mint mark. That means it was struck in Philadelphia, where mistakes were more likely to slip through unnoticed. No extra letter. No warning sign. Just silence. And in that silence, rarity was born. Collectors didn't notice at first. These pennies circulated freely. They passed through grocery stores, gas stations, vending machines. Children carried them in their pockets. Some were scratched beyond recognition. Others survived untouched, hidden away in jars, drawers, and old coffee cans. A collector sorting through a routine roll of pennies noticed something odd. The coin looked sharper. The details felt stronger. Lincoln's portrait seemed unusually crisp. The date, 1973, stood out like it had been struck with purpose. And most importantly, there was no mint mark. Not unusual by itself. But paired with the condition? That's when the room went quiet. The strike was unusually strong. The surfaces were nearly flawless. No wear. No circulation marks. It was as if time had skipped over this penny entirely. Word spread fast. Dealers called other dealers. Photos circulated. Forums exploded. And then the rumors started. As collectors began digging deeper, they realized that certain 1973 pennies showed subtle anomalies. Microscopic die issues. Slight doubling in places most people never look. A texture and weight that hinted at a perfect storm during production. Nothing flashy. Nothing obvious. The kind of details only experienced eyes catch, and that's exactly why so many people missed them. Auction houses began paying attention. Suddenly, a coin that once bought a piece of candy was being discussed in the same breath as six-figure and even $1 million coins. One private sale sent shockwaves through the hobby. A pristine 1973 no mint mark penny, graded at the absolute top level, reportedly reached a value that made seasoned collectors pause. Phones rang nonstop. Dealers started advertising aggressively. People rushed home to check old collections they hadn't touched in decades. Most 1973 pennies are worth 1 cent. Maybe 2. But a perfect one? That's a different universe. Condition is everything. One tiny scratch can destroy the dream. One fingerprint can erase thousands of dollars. That's why the few that survive in top condition are hunted like buried treasure. Collectors were shocked by how many had unknowingly spent potential fortunes over the years. A retired man cleaning out his late father's belongings found a small envelope labeled 1970s change. Inside were dozens of pennies. Most were common. But one stopped him cold. A 1973 penny. No mint mark. Bright surfaces. Sharp rims. Untouched. He almost put it back, until he remembered a story he once heard. Experts confirmed it was one of the finest examples ever seen. The kind of coin that doesn't just sell, it makes headlines. Suddenly, this quiet family keepsake was being talked about in terms of $1 million potential. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on coins like this because they know something most people don't. They're not locked in museums. They're not all in vaults. Some are sitting in dresser drawers. Some are mixed in with loose change. Some are waiting for the right person to look closely enough. You're looking for a 1973 Lincoln penny with no mint mark under the date. The coin must look unusually sharp. Lincoln's hairlines should be crisp. The words Liberty and I in God We Trust should be bold, not soft. The rim should be full and clean, not flattened. The color should be natural, not darkened by heavy circulation. Avoid cleaning it. Ever. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Even wiping it with a cloth can turn a life-changing coin into pocket change. One person spends it without a thought. Another person looks twice, and walks into history. Because this isn't just about money. It's about timing, awareness, and the quiet power of paying attention to what everyone else ignores. That's why collectors are obsessed. That's why dealers are watching. And that's why this penny refuses to fade into obscurity. Tossed into a jar, forgotten in a drawer, nearly spent on a cup of coffee, until one shocking discovery turned an ordinary moment into $1 million legend. Picture this. You reach into your pocket, feel a few loose coins, and without thinking, you pull out a dull brown penny dated 1979. No shine. No silver. No drama. Just a penny. Or so it seems. What most people don't realize is that this exact 1979 no mint mark Lincoln penny, in absolute top condition, has ignited whispers across the U.S. coin world. Whispers of sales climbing toward $2.2 million. Collectors still talk about the day it happened. A seasoned dealer was sorting through routine inventory when one penny made him stop cold. His hands froze. His heart started racing. Because something about this coin felt wrong, and that feeling would change his life. The year 1979 was supposed to be boring. Billions of pennies were struck, flooding circulation across America. No major design changes. No silver content. Nothing special, at least, that's what everyone believed. And that belief is exactly why some of the rarest pennies ever made slipped through unnoticed. This particular penny had no mint mark, meaning it was struck in Philadelphia. Normally, that wouldn't matter. But in 1979, the Philadelphia Mint was pushing equipment to its limits, producing massive quantities at high speed. Dies wore out faster. Pressures varied. Tiny mistakes crept in, mistakes so subtle that even experienced collectors missed them for decades. Coins that somehow escaped circulation. Coins with razor-sharp details. Coins with surfaces so clean they looked frozen in time. And suddenly, auction houses started paying attention. A 1979 no mint mark Lincoln penny, preserved in near-perfect condition, certified at the absolute top of the grading scale, crossed the auction block. Bidding didn't creep. It exploded. Phones lit up. Dealers leaned forward. The room went silent, and then the final hammer dropped at a price that sent shockwaves through the hobby. The value isn't just about age. It's not about copper. It's not even about rarity in numbers. It's about perfection, combined with tiny minting characteristics that almost no one checks for. On high-value examples, Lincoln's portrait shows unusually strong strike lines. The hair above Lincoln's ear is fully separated. The jawline is crisp. The date numbers are bold and squared, not soft or rounded. Even the word Liberty appears clean, with no weakness, something rarely seen on circulated 1979 cents. Flip the coin over. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial steps appear sharp and fully defined. The roofline is complete. No mushy details. No blending. And the fields, those flat areas around the design, look smooth, almost glassy, with a warm original copper glow. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these examples because the supply is microscopic. Out of billions minted, only a handful survive in this condition. And once they're locked into private collections, they vanish from the market, sometimes forever. One man, not a collector, not an investor, found a 1979 penny while cleaning out an old dresser that belonged to his father. The coin sat in a small envelope labeled spare change. Curious, he took it to a local shop, just to ask a question. After professional grading, authentication, and months of quiet negotiations, that forgotten piece of pocket change transformed into a life-altering payout. 1 cent. 1 moment. $1 million miracle. As collectors realized how few top-condition examples existed, competition intensified. Wealthy buyers wanted one for prestige. Museums wanted one for history. Investors wanted one for legacy. And now, whispers are circulating that the finest known examples could push $2.2 million when the right buyer steps forward. They clean the coin. They polish it. They rub it with cloth. They think they're helping, but in reality, they erase tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, of dollars in value. So if you think you might have one, stop. Don't clean it. Don't spend it. Don't assume it's ordinary, and most importantly, trust your instincts. Because every legendary coin discovery starts the same way, with someone who almost ignored it. Collectors know the truth. Dealers feel the pressure. Auction houses are watching closely, and somewhere right now, someone is holding a penny they don't realize could change their life forever. Because this exact 1979 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But today, in top condition, it has shocked the entire coin world with a market value reaching $2.3 million. Imagine this for a second. You're standing in your kitchen, emptying loose change from your pocket after a long day. Pennies, nickels, nothing special. One small brown coin rolls across the table. No mint mark. Just another Lincoln penny from 1969, or so it seems. But what if that single moment was the difference between ordinary life and a life completely transformed? This is the 1969 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin with a story so strange, so misunderstood, that for decades collectors didn't even know what they were holding. In 1969, the U.S. Mint was under pressure. Demand for coins was exploding, production was rushed, and quality control quietly slipped. Millions of pennies were struck in Philadelphia, which means no mint mark at all. At first glance, they looked identical. Same Lincoln portrait. Same wheat-free design. Same copper color. Nothing that would make you stop and stare. But hidden inside a tiny number of these pennies was a fatal mistake, one so rare, so precise, that only a handful survived. A small batch of 1969 no-mint mark pennies showed abnormal doubling in critical areas. Doubling so strong it could be seen with the naked eye, yet subtle enough that most people spent them without a second thought. Lincoln's date. His inscriptions. The very details people rarely examine. And because these coins circulated normally, they were worn down, scratched, damaged, erased by time, and suddenly, whispers began spreading through collector circles. Dealers started checking old rolls. Auction houses started asking questions. And one ordinary man made a discovery that changed his life forever. He wasn't a professional numismatist. He wasn't wealthy. He simply had a habit of checking his change. One night, under a cheap desk lamp, he noticed something strange about a 1969 penny with no mint mark. The date looked thicker. The letters felt wrong. Almost like the coin had been stamped twice. Certified. Authentic. One of the rarest surviving 1969 no-mint mark era pennies ever confirmed. When this penny appeared at auction, collectors didn't hesitate. Bidding escalated in seconds. Numbers climbed faster than anyone expected. Dealers leaned forward. Phones rang nonstop. And when the hammer finally dropped, the results sent shockwaves through the market. Over $2 million for a single penny. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these pennies because they understand one brutal truth: nearly all of them are already gone. Spent. Melted. Lost forever. Only a microscopic number remain in top condition, untouched by cleaning, polishing, or damage. The key isn't just the year. It isn't just the missing mint mark. It's the strength and placement of the doubling. Not machine doubling. Not wear. True hub doubling, created during the minting process itself. You'll see doubling in the date 1969. In Liberty. In God We Trust. Crisp. Clear. Undeniable. Collectors were shocked when clean examples surfaced, coins that could have changed lives, destroyed by a single bad decision. That's why condition matters. Top condition is everything. Original surfaces. No harsh cleaning. No damage. No polishing. Because only pristine survivors command values approaching $2.3 million. Old collections are being reopened. Estate boxes are being searched. Drawers that haven't been touched in 40 years are suddenly priceless hunting grounds. Because somewhere, hidden in plain sight, another one could still exist. A second example surfaced years later. Even fewer flaws. Even stronger details. And once again, the market erupted. Prices climbed. Records broke. And the legend of the 1969 no-mint mark Lincoln penny was cemented forever. Start with the date, 1969. No mint mark beneath the date. Look closely at the numbers. Do they appear doubled, not blurry, but distinctly separated? Examine the lettering. Are the edges sharp? Is the coin uncleaned, with natural color? If anything looks unusual, stop. Do nothing. Get it authenticated by a professional grading service immediately. A quiet afternoon. Someone empties their pockets onto a table. Keys. Receipts. A few dull pennies. One of them dated 1980. No mint mark. Ordinary. Forgettable. Or so it seemed. At first glance, the 1980 no mint mark Lincoln penny looks like millions of others struck in Philadelphia. Same Lincoln portrait. Same copper tone. Same familiar weight in your hand. For years, these coins passed through gas stations, grocery stores, school lunch lines, never suspected of hiding anything special. 1980 was a year of quiet chaos inside the U.S. Mint. Metal prices were shifting. Production pressures were rising. Quality control was stretched thin. And during this exact moment, a tiny group of pennies slipped through the system carrying mysterious characteristics that were never meant to exist. A single coin, pulled from circulation, sent for grading almost as a joke, and came back with a verdict that made seasoned dealers go silent. The surfaces were flawless. The strike was razor sharp. The color was blazing red like it had just left the press. Not a single contact mark. Not a single flaw. Auction houses started digging through old rolls. Dealers began buying bags of pennies by the pound. Collectors across America started rechecking jars they hadn't touched in 40 years. The 1980 no mint mark Lincoln penny sits at the crossroads of modern coinage and rarity psychology. Billions were made, but almost none survived in absolute top condition. These coins were heavily circulated, tossed into machines, scraped in drawers, rolled and unrolled endlessly. So when one appears untouched, it becomes something else entirely. One collector described holding it as holding lightning in copper. On true high-end examples, Lincoln's hair shows full separation. The cheekbone is sharp. The jawline is crisp. On the reverse, every line of the Lincoln memorial is fully defined, with deep steps and squared corners. Weak strikes kill value instantly. Strong strikes multiply it. The color matters more than people realize. These coins must glow with original red luster, not cleaned, not polished, not retoned. Natural mint red that has somehow survived 4 decades of circulation danger. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on coins like this because demand isn't slowing, it's exploding. Some experts believe a micro-variation in planchet preparation during early 1980 created pennies with unusually smooth fields and superior metal flow. Others whisper about test batches struck under ideal pressure before mass production ramped up. At a private sale, an elite condition 1980 no-mint mark penny reportedly changed hands for a price that made headlines inside closed collector circles. The number wasn't publicized loudly, but insiders spoke of $1 million territory. Suddenly, a coin once worth 1 cent was being treated like a Picasso. Every year since, grading submissions for 1980 pennies have surged. Most come back ordinary, worn, brown, damaged, worth face value. But every so often, one doesn't. That question keeps people watching until the very last second. Any scratches, dullness, spots, or discoloration drop the value dramatically. We're talking about coins that look almost unreal, as if time never touched them. Check Lincoln's hair and jaw. Look for crisp separation, not mushy details. On the reverse, inspect the Lincoln Memorial. Full steps. Sharp pillars. Clear lettering with no weakness. Original red luster is everything. Once it turns brown, the dream fades. The $1 million examples glow, not with cloth, not with chemicals, not even gently. Cleaning destroys originality, and originality is what collectors pay for. People have unknowingly wiped away $1 million with a paper towel. If you believe you've found something special, professional grading is the only path forward. Authentication transforms rumors into reality. And here's the part nobody talks about. Most legendary coins aren't found by experts. They're found by ordinary people who look twice. But in top condition, it shocked the coin world with a value whispered to reach $1 million levels no one saw coming. Picture this for a second. You're emptying your pockets at the end of a long day. Receipts, keys, a few loose pennies. One of them looks ordinary. Brown. Worn. Forgettable. But what if that single penny, dated 1993, with a small D mint mark, was hiding a secret so powerful it could change your entire life? Most people would never look twice. And that's exactly why this story is so dangerous, and so thrilling. The 1993 D Lincoln penny was born during a time when the US Mint was pushing out billions of coins at lightning speed. Denver was running nonstop. Quality control was tight, but not perfect. And in those tiny moments of human error, history slipped through the cracks. Collectors still talk about the first time rumors started spreading. A strange 1993 D penny surfaced. The weight felt wrong. The strike looked sharper than normal. Under magnification, the details told a story that made seasoned dealers freeze in their tracks. During the early 1990s, the US Mint was experimenting, transitioning, recalibrating machinery, adjusting metal compositions, and correcting dyes that wore down faster than expected. In rare cases, incredibly rare cases, the wrong planchet, the wrong dye, or a misaligned strike slipped through unnoticed. One collector, going through rolls of pennies late at night, noticed something strange about a 1993 D. Lincoln's portrait looked unusually bold. The rim was perfectly squared. The surfaces had a satiny glow instead of the dull brown most pennies carry. It didn't look circulated. It looked preserved. Almost frozen in time. When experts examined the coin, whispers turned into shock. This wasn't just a high-grade penny. This was a potential mint error combined with an ultra-rare top-condition strike. The kind of coin that almost never survives in pristine form. Billions of 1993 D pennies were made. Billions. But finding one in absolute top condition, untouched, flawless, nearly perfect, is like finding a needle in a mountain of copper. Then add the possibility of a minting anomaly, and suddenly, the value explodes. When the coin was professionally graded, the room went silent. The grade placed it among the finest examples ever recorded. Suddenly, the conversation shifted from hundreds to thousands, to numbers that made people uncomfortable to even say out loud. Auction houses quietly expressed interest. Private collectors made discreet inquiries. One expert allegedly said, "If this ever hits the open market, it won't stay there long." Because elite collectors don't just buy coins. They buy stories. They buy rarity. They buy moments in minting history that can never be repeated. The difference between a face value penny and one worth $1,000,000 can be so small it fits inside the curve of Lincoln's shoulder. The most valuable 1993 D pennies share a terrifying truth. They look ordinary to the untrained eye. No dramatic color. No obvious damage. No flashy mistake screaming for attention. Their power is subtle. One man's pocket change became a $1,000,000 miracle simply because he stopped and looked closer. As word spread, collectors across the US began rechecking their change. Forums lit up. Videos exploded. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Could they have one too? To identify the real treasure, you must slow down and become obsessive. Next, examine the surfaces. Top condition coins show sharp, razor-like details. Lincoln's hairlines are crisp. The cheek is smooth. The fields are clean and reflective, not dull or grainy. Some of the most valuable examples show signs of striking anomalies or planchet irregularities, things you can't fake and can't unsee once you know what to look for. And please remember this: cleaning the coin destroys value instantly. One wipe can erase hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you think you've found something special, stop. Put it down. Protect it. Experts warn that counterfeits and exaggerated claims flood the internet. Only professionally graded, verified examples in elite condition have ever reached the extreme values whispered in collector circles. Every year, stories surface of unbelievable discoveries. A penny found in a jar. A roll pulled from a bank. A collection inherited and ignored for decades.